test 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Let's get going. So, to quote the lady up front, the world is ending. No, it's not. Oh, I hear a lot of that shit. All right. So, a lot of you have decided that the world truly is ending because of what's going on with the Nar settlement. So before we get into Money Market Mondays, let's deal with that and get the elephant out of the room. Okay. So the settlement that Nar sent over is very similar to what Remax sent over. Just so you're aware, the courts approved the previous settlement. It was anywhere in Remax both that were part of that one. We expect the courts to approve this. The DOJ has not approved it yet, and that's the fly in the ointment. DOJ's stance, based on their statement from 2 weeks ago, was sellers should not be allowed to compensate buyers' agents even if they choose to. Now, NAR's attorneys, from what I understand, Scott Peterson from Carr, the other attorneys all said, yeah, you're way overstepping your bounds, back off. I don't know exactly where all that is right now, but the DOJ is definitely gunning for brokers in general. There were some slight changes to this settlement from NAR that we think, so I said the word think, will satisfy the DOJ enough to where they'll sign off on. Okay, so here's what I'm going to tell you. The sky is not falling. Y'all are going to have to do your job the way you were supposed to do it all these years. And most of you do it that way anyway, so it's not a big deal. So for most agents, A, in Colorado, because our agency laws are much more progressive than most of the country, and B, especially in KW, because you guys always get your agency signed before you go out, then you have no problem. If you don't worry. As of July 1st, you'll figure out how to do that real quick if you won't get paid. You'll go through a deal and you will literally show up at the table and there will not be a check for you. So, and by the way, they're not kidding. You will not get paid at the table and you won't get paid, period. So you'll do 1 or 2 deals for free and you'll go, I don't like doing that anymore. You'll go, hey, maybe I can get that filled out earlier. So let's go through what the 5 things are in the settlement, so you guys understand. And now here's the thing. This has not been approved by the court. This has not been approved by DOJ. So this is not the end of this, and it would not take effect until the end of July anyways. So we got 4 months. We have plenty of time. You'll have plenty of notice. Don't freak out. And for God's sakes, don't start putting crap on social media. Because we got people who are putting stuff on social media and they don't know what they're talking about, and they're going to turn around and look like idiots to the general public and their clients, and they make us look like idiots too. So here's the thing, right now, relax. That's my soapbox for today, okay? All right. Nope. So, number 1, a buyer settlement will be required. Obviously, that's supposed to be that way right now. But notice, before the agent can show a home listed on an MLS, if you don't have it signed beforehand, you are in violation. I don't know what the fines will be, but I guarantee they will be significant. And I'm guessing, and this is a guess on my part, we're talking in the thousands of dollars, possibly tens of thousands of dollars for violating. Don't do it. Okay. Who can tell me what the steps are when you get a buyer before you take them out?
Well, you would want to get them under agency.
Okay,
You would do a buyer consultation.
thank you.
Oh, well, yeah.
You're gonna start with buyer consultation. Bring them in. Okay, about every 2 to 3 years, we have a realtor murdered, many times raped, and sometimes tortured somewhere in the country because someone decided to be a Pop-Tart. And someone called and said, I want to see this property in a dark place where no one's going to hear you. And they went, okay, I'm gonna run out there. Get them pre-approved, have a buyer consult, sign an agency before they look at it. So if Joe calls me and says, yeah, but I only have an hour to look at this, that's awesome, Joe. I'm a professional realtor. And if you want to work with me, this is how we do things. So we make sure that you are protected. Because here's the thing, until you have the consultation, do you know if this property is even going to be close to fitting what they want? So please don't do that.
Or if they're even approved for.
Or if they're approved for it, you're going to go broke. You're going to put yourself at risk. You're looking at possible fines. So an agency needs to be signed beforehand. Okay. In that disclosure, agents must disclose, I can't talk, the amount or rate of compensation they will receive, how much this and how this rate will be determined. I get 3% of the gross price. I get half of whatever the commission is the other agent is getting as a co-op. I get $500. You can pick how it is. Okay. Number 2, the amount of compensation must be set in the agreement, such as a percentage or dollar amount, and cannot be open-ended. I'm going to get whatever they offer is not going to work. Okay. Agents cannot receive compensation for brokerage services from any source more than the amount or rate agreed to in the buyer's representation agreement. Now, here's why most agents think that the sky is falling. Oh my God, I'm not going to get that much. Here's a wild, crazy idea. Get to know your scripts and dialogues and write in there more than you think you're going to get. So when I have a property that I think might be harder to sell, I offer a higher co-op. I have for 24 years. Or if you're working in Northern Colorado, 3% is normal, down here 2.8 is. So if you put 2.8 in and you go to Northern Colorado and they're automatically offering a 3, how much can you get? 2.8. Whereas if you put 3% in, you can get 3. Now, what if they're paying 2.8? Well, you have 2 options. Actually, technically 3. One is you could put in, and this will be, we'll figure out how we do this as this all progresses. I have a call on Thursday with a bunch of attorneys, including Damien, to talk about how we're going to move forward with this. But you might put something in the contract that says buyer requests that seller pay 3% co-op to their agent, so that buyer does not need to pay the total amount on the buyer's agency. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2 is you can do an amendment to your agency that says, instead of taking 3%, I am willing to drop it to 2.8 because you're getting that. Number 3 is the buyer's agent co-ops 2.8%, 0.2% comes from the buyer. Now, can I just blow your minds? Oh. Now, let me blow your minds. This is how we've done it in commercial for 60, 70 years. It's worked fine. So it works. It's easy. It means, though, you're going to have to be more conscious. What you're going to find out here is the MLS will no longer have co-ops, but you can't put it on the website. By the way, this is a great time for us to own our technology. As every KW agent, we just automatically have it imported, and you'll have to place in kind of a KWLS where it goes in, and everybody can come look at all KW agents easily. Try being one of these independent brokers. Okay, even Remax doesn't have that ability. All right, Does this make sense so far for number one?
Quick question, okay, so say we go past July or whatever the date is, and everything moves forward. The way it's set right now. The buyer co-op can still be put in MLS, it's just not required.
Cannot be
So
put in one.
there won't even be a space in.
Nope, they will pull that field out.
So it's gonna be in your best interest to make sure you actually have that conversation with everyone.
Joe, we're gonna have this really weird thing happen that used to happen back when I started. You're going to have to pick up a phone and have a conversation with the other agent. Okay, Jeff, how many times have you and I both teaching said, pick up the damn phone and talk to the other agent? Hundreds of times?
I believe in everything you say.
Well, the largest pet peeve I've ever
So-
encountered is not a phone call or a text before getting like an offer. That's how.
Yeah.
But now I think it's gonna be.
So here's the thing, I'm one of the reasons why they're taking it out of the MLS. Cause I put a 3% co-op in, Joe had put a 2.5 in, and the realtors would look at it and they go, I'm not showing Joe's, I'm gonna go show Cato's. Why? Are they, and by the way, are they serving their client the best way possible? Which, by the way, we solved this in Colorado, I think it was about 14 years ago. Because we put in these checkboxes that said, seller may pay, buyer is obligated to pay. If you put 3% in there, I didn't care if Joe's paying 2.5, because I would just disclose to my clients that, hey, we need to change your offer, because you're gonna owe me a 0.5%. Do you know how many clients I had get upset about this over the years? Zero. And I mean zero. Because I went, okay, great, I understand. By the way, there were a couple times when I didn't tell them before we wrote a contract, I ate it. That's my fault for not being professional and not catching that.
Can I ask why you think they're definitely gonna remove the field in general? Cause I've always felt, and this is the first I've heard someone say just removing the field, because. Yes, it does not have to be entered, but I feel like for those sellers out there who want to be a little more prominent, they're gonna be able to input it and say, hey, we are co-op, just so you know.
Yes, now, let me get back to it, because you just moved my screen on me and I have no idea where it went to.
So Cato, basically, like when we're writing our offers with our buyers, and additional provisions is where we would put our
Nope,
co-op
You
fee.
can't put it, you are not putting it anywhere on the MLS. Zero,
No,
not
in our offer though, like the CBS.
we'll get to that. And here's the thing, it's preliminary, too early to answer that question. By next week, I should have an answer for you there. Okay, this is 4 months from now. So nothing changes right now.
Right, business as usual.
Yep,
But in general, we should start acting as if and start. We just.
well, you should start educating your clients about it, because they're hearing about it. Okay. So we talked about offers of compensation cannot be made on the MLS. They won't be in broker remarks, they won't be a field for it and all that. Period. No ifs, no ands, no buts. And by the way, this is one of the things that everybody wants. So I don't see this part not passing. We don't know what's gonna happen with number 2 there, so I'm gonna just bypass that right now. Offers on cooperative compensation may be made off the MLS. So you can put it on a flyer in an open house. You can put it on your website. We're questioning whether or not you'll be able to put it on social media. And the reason being that that usually ties back to the MLS. And so there's a question there. We'll get clarity on it. Okay. An MLS cannot require agents to make or accept offers of cooperative compensation as a condition to joining or participating in the MLS. Okay, meaning they're pulling away some of the power the MLSs have. Not a terrible thing in my mind. Okay, brokers can publish offers of cooperative compensation of their own listings on their own websites. Who uses IDX? It has to be scrubbed off of all IDX sites. Now that usually comes from MLSs, so that's not a big deal. But we can publish on our KW site what we have. But Joe is on a different team than I am. I cannot publish Joe, so as it sits now. Now, the thing is, because we're all under one employing broker, Don Sarno, there's a question about how that's going to go. Okay, so we're getting clarity on that. Last one. I laugh, this one. Agents must make a commission disclosure. Agents must disclose on in listing agreements, buyer's representation agreements, and pre-closing disclosures that broker commissions are not set by law and are fully negotiable. Hey, by the way, our contracts already say this.
Yeah,
There's certain states they don't. Okay. If you notice when you go to our contracts, it has a blank where we have to fill that number in. Okay, so all I'm saying is the forms committee will probably put something else in there just to make it even clearer. And you're gonna say, hey, here's my rate, and you're gonna have to get good on your scripts around, well, I don't want to pay that. Awesome. So you want a crappy realtor? Cool. Would you like referrals to some crappy realtors? I know a bunch of them. You're laughing, but I'm being serious. You should see how many people go, well, no, I want a good realtor. Okay, well, this is what a good realtor costs you. Folks, for the most part, this isn't going to change anything. We'll probably still do co-ops. You know, we have to see what DOJ is going to do, but I don't foresee that changing. But you're just going to have to spend an extra 5 minutes before you write an offer to know what the compensation looks like, and you have to get your buyer agency before you go out with a buyer. Is there anything hard about this? By the way, this was all best practice in the state already. Now it just becomes common practice. And by the way, you hear a bunch of realtors and a bunch of firms jumping up and down saying this is unfair. Find out who they service and go steal their clients. Because their clients are being very underserved. All right, what questions? And that's as much as we're going to go into right now, because that's about as much as we know. We will keep you informed. We will have classes on this. Value Squared is a new KW class. The next one is on the 26th of this month. I believe it's at 1 p.m. We will be playing it in the room here. I'd strongly suggest you come to it. I saw half of it last time. It was excellent. So I would strongly suggest that you guys take a look at that. All right, so let's get into the economics part.
Can we ask a couple questions?
Yep.
Regarding the compensation, I understand that needs to be written up as a concession from the seller to be financed into the purchase, which then.
Maybe or maybe not, Christy, most banks will not finance it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what comes with VA loans and some other types of loans too, and they're gonna have to work through it. But it typically will not be financed. It'll have to come out of the seller's proceeds. And by the way,
right, but it's still a concession.
I'll let an accountant answer whether it's a concession or not. I don't see it as a concession, but as a cost of sales.
Okay, well, that's up in the air, I guess, but the end of my question was regarding if it is a concession, then that affects loan terms because you can only have a certain percentage per loan, right?
Yep, and again, we're too preliminary to go into this conversation because it hasn't even been accepted by the court yet. So we will get into that, but that's probably going to take a month for us to get an answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. I don't want to give you guys any BS answers. I'd rather tell you everything so we know exactly what we're doing. Now we return to our regularly scheduled show. I just knew you guys were going to ask a whole bunch of questions, so let's just get it on. What do you guys think about the economy these days?
It's I think.
No, I'm asking,
Serious.
It's challenging.
It's challenging, that's a good word.
in what ways?
I see cost of goods higher.
What types of goods?
Groceries.
Okay, so hardcore inflation. What else? Gas is back up if you look.
Yeah,
It's not terrible, but it's gone up some.
but even like our insurance rates.
Insurance is through the roof.
Just like everything as
Taxes,
a whole.
Yep.
Parents, property
Property
taxes.
taxes.
Yeah, well, property taxes isn't related to this though. This is based on the fact that we have a very dishonest state government.
Yep.
That basically sold a bill of goods to the people and completely boondoggled the state. But neither here nor there.
Just got notice all the car insurance is going up.
Yep, car insurance is a huge one, health insurance is another one. So, let's look at CPI for a few minutes. Back in October of last year, CPI was going down, we're all singing Kumbaya. And then we started to go up a little bit, and everybody said, you know what, it's nothing big. We got this thing called Christmas and Hanukkah coming up, people are spending money. It's all great, fine, we went up a little bit here. And then we hit January and it was supposed to come back down and it if you notice, the trend line hasn't changed. Anybody remember me back in about October saying I expect that they may need to do another raise of prime rates before they knock them down? And I've been saying that since. And everybody looked at me like I had three heads. If this number keeps going up by the June meeting, we will have to do at least a 25% basis increase, and I'll show you why as we go through this. Keeps going up past June, we may have to do 2 increases this year. It's just mathematics, folks. I don't care what the talking heads say. People lie, numbers don't. Okay? And by the way, these reports you have to read with a grain of salt because last year we were overstated on our employment numbers by more than an average of 50,000 a month. That's a lot of jobs to be off. Yeah. And when we look at 81% of the new jobs that were being created were governmental, that doesn't actually stimulate the economy, that stimulates the amount of taxes we have to pay. Okay. Colorado, now, and actually let's go back here for a second. This is 3.9% CPI. We're shooting for a target of 2. We're going the wrong direction. We're almost double where we need to be. Okay. But then you go to our state and we're seeing our growth diminish some. Part of this is because of things like property taxes. We had a couple companies that were looking at coming in and went, I'm sorry, our people can't afford to live here because you're going to raise taxes like you did in California. No, thank you, we'll go to Texas or wherever else they went. But we were projected to do 1.5% in 2024, and now our current forecast is 2.2. So we've gone up 0.7%. This is actually though why our real estate market will do okay. Probably better than most of the country. Because our economy will slow down faster, which will stabilize our prices, meaning our pricing is going to shoot up early in the season, and then it's going to taper off some. Okay, but that helps keep us where we need to be for the affordability index. Dotted line, who knows if it's right or wrong, but it sort of gives you an idea of what they're projecting. You said that groceries were higher. I said gas was higher. This is one of the reasons you're feeling that. Is when you look at inflation in general, we're at 3.9%. Core inflation is 4.2. Meaning groceries and gas are really high. So everybody else in all the other sectors are dropping their prices because they're competing so hard. But groceries, fuel, that stuff is, and that's the stuff that shifts more quickly. But God forbid we have swine flu, avian flu, or some sort of issue with lettuce or whatever, because this number will skyrocket again. Okay. You will not see pricing go down at grocery stores in the next 4 years, unless we get into a deflationary. You all know the difference between inflation, disinflation, and deflation. Inflation is when people feel good about the economy and therefore they're willing to spend a little bit more and pricing goes up. Now it can be based on supply and demand, but a lot of times it's based on consumer sentiment. Disinflation means it's going up, but at a slower pace than it was previously. So if it was going up 4% last month and it's going up 3% this month, it's disinflation. Does that make sense? If it's going up 4%, it's going up 5% this much, and it's reinflation. If it goes up 4% and it starts going up 15% or more, then it's stagflation, which is the term you'll hear. Deflation means it was going up 4%, now it's dropping 4%. We do not want deflation. That may sound good on your checkbooks. That is the economy in a tailspin heading toward the ground. And by the way, you do not mind the fall, you mind the hard landing at the end. It's the same thing with deflation. Okay? But what I want you to get is, since about February of this last year, maybe January, core has been higher than the rest of inflation. That's why you feel like the world is in a good place right now. And by the way, it's worse in Colorado. This is a national one. It's a little worse in Colorado by about 0.5% than it is in the rest of the country. Has anyone heard me say there won't be a soft one?
No.
Jamie, you could go to the back of the room.
No.
Here's why. This is an article that I read last week that I thought was wonderful in the way it showed us. If you look here, the colors correlate to different Fed meetings. They're trying to get to 2%. So in September of 20, we were in a really good spot. We were below it. Okay. And then we just kept putting money into the system. It made it harder and harder because we created the inflation with all this friggin' money that we just printed out of nowhere to devalue the dollar to throw at people. The steeper this angle gets, the harder it is to get to that 2%. Last week, Janet Yellen came out and said, well, I really wish I hadn't said inflation was transitory. Hey, how many of you heard me tell you inflation is not transitory? It doesn't just go away. It has never been, will never be transitory. That is what you say during an election cycle. Okay? And it's gotten harder and harder and harder. Now, here is the issue. The Fed, which is a private corporation, right now is at odds with the political machine in Washington. Because whether they're Republican, Democrat, or independent, they want to be reelected if they're incumbents, yes? They want to be on the gravy train. They needed to show low unemployment and basically strong financials so that everybody goes, I feel great, keep them in, they're doing a great job. The Fed needs unemployment to come up. We actually need to hit right around 6% just to slow the economy down enough so that we get rid of some of this inflation. Because we aren't going to get to the 2% until then. So the Fed's got to keep rates high to start creating unemployment to crash the economy. Does this make sense? So now, in an election year, the incumbents are going, damn it, do what we say. We need to be reelected. You can do all this after the election. But, and I realize this will come as a shock to some of you, politicians aren't always the sharpest cats. If the Fed were to do exactly what the politicians want, it crashed the economy. And now, and by the way, it hit right around the November election season, it absolutely destroyed the chance. So now they're standing on the teeter-totter and they're leaning to one side, they're trying to get it back over here, but they're a little overextended. You all know what I'm talking about? Standing right in the middle of the teeter-totter. And there's someone on this end pushing down, and they're trying to push back. This was a problem that we made. This is a problem that is not going to go away. And I'm gonna tell you, by the June meeting, it's gonna be here. And it'll probably hover right around this 5% between now and November. And eventually that gets to where it almost becomes a nice right angle there. But what I'm saying is, in no way, shape, or form is this going to be easy. Bumpy would be a good word. That was the word Paul used for it. Unfortunately, I think a little more than bumpy. Unemployment overall is low, and a big part has to do with the fact that government is creating all these jobs. Now, it's not all of them, I realize that, but they're also creating incentives for companies to hire people to go out and do all this stuff. Smart employers are hiring the people, making the money while they can. We need to be here to slow the economy. This is that fight that I'm talking about that we're having between the Fed and the federal government. So let's talk about savings rates for a minute, since we're talking about employment. Savings rate right now is 3.5%, meaning when people make $100, they put $3.50 in the bank. And that's as much as they can afford, because groceries are higher, gas is higher, services are higher, insurance is higher, all this stuff, right? Now, I took it from January of 2020 to give you an idea what it looks like in recent history. And so where you see that sharp increase there was when everybody got their stimulus checks and they put them in the bank and said, oh, this is great. And then some of them bought TVs and things like that. A lot of them ended up, saving it for a rainy day, and things started getting more expensive, and it kind of started whittling away. So why Americans feel like they have less now than they did 4 years ago. If you look at the chart on the bottom, I started in October of 1973. Most of you were not born, but there was this little thing called the US oil embargo. To give you an idea of relevance, gas would have been about $9.11 a gallon right now. And your house payment would be roughly 1.5 times what you're paying right now if you bought a house before about 6 months ago. And yet people were still putting away more money.
What was that, like 14%?
Yeah, I don't know what the exact was. I think it was closer to 12,
Well,
but
the gas, 9/11, you think?
in today's rates, it'd be $9.11 a gallon, and that was if you could get it, because that was when we had all the shortages. Last balanced budget was in 1980. Our lowest recorded rate was right at the end of 2005, or I'm sorry, middle of 2005. And actually, one of the reasons for that was everybody's taking money out of savings and buying homes with ninjas. And no, I do not mean the karate people. No income, no asset loans. Here's the 2008 banking crisis. Here's where we're at today. Are we in good shape when we look at it over someone's lifetime? Better than 2008, better than 2005, but not very good. I didn't put an average line on here, but the average line would probably be right a little above this peak here. So, y'all want to know how we solve every economic problem we have in this country right now? Everybody in the country stops spending money on useless crap on Amazon. And we put it in the bank. It would slow down the economy. It helped the savings rate. It would stabilize our real estate. Now, how many think Americans will do that?
They're consumers, they wouldn't.
We don't know how to not live in debt as a society. By the way, we'll learn, don't worry, give it about 5 years. Yeah, that sounds like a cynical line.
Yeah.
Mortgage applications. We had a little bit of a downturn in February, which I think caught a lot of people off guard a bit. But it's started coming back. I haven't seen the numbers for this week, but we are seeing them come back. We are definitely seeing seasonality. My team put a listing on the market let's see, we sold it in 7 hours, 7.5. If they're priced right, they're going. And by the way, we had multiple people who then texted us, said, damn it, I wanted to get an offer in, like, sorry. Make sure you're pricing right. And I, by the way, I'm not saying that to be precocious, I'm saying that because I knew what would happen and we were able to sell for over in a very short period of time because we did that. By the way, let's talk about that for 1 second. Anybody want to know how to sell in 1 day? List the property early in the week. Don't let there be showings until Saturday at noon. Gives you time to get some marketing out there. And I mean, nobody goes in, not from this brokerage, not from Remax, not your buddy. And then hold an open house at the same time. And advertise it. Now the neighbors know about it. Now you got brokers scrambling to get in. You let them all come in at one time. When they all see that other people are looking, what does that do to their motivation? Gets the offer in earlier, usually gets it in higher too. And by the way, it works really well in this market. One of the issues with this NAR thing that's coming out that we will see resolve itself in the next year and a half is agents are going to have to negotiate with their buyers on getting paid a commission, right? Anybody think there will be some buyers going, don't need an agent? Someone want to tell me how they get access? You can't give, well, listing agent. But
I don't mind though running a couple more deals and people are gonna come to me.
But, and you're 100% right, Joe. But what do you think is going to happen when that buyer goes, well, Joe didn't take care of me?
We're probably treating him as a customer.
We will be. Does the general public understand that, even when they get their definitions page? I'm gonna tell you right now, I will have Damien writing something up that you guys will send for anything you double in. That says, I am absolutely and unequivocally an agent for the seller. You are in a hostile environment when you are negotiating with me. No, I want him to use that word too. And I am here to serve my seller's best interest. I am not here to serve yours. And I want that on purpose because as these go up and buyers go, I can do this. We're not there to show you the property. We're there for when it goes under contract and after. That's when we really come. Okay, does that make sense?
It goes back to, it's no different than making sure your buyer, you know, when they walk onto like a new build community, for example, knowing that you're represented, because it's the same thing. That's what will happen. You'll get roped out of it, and then you don't get any. You don't get any representation as a buyer. That's the thing that's going to be educated.
Well, and actually, I'm kind of curious, and I don't know the answer to this one, Joe, but I'm wondering if we put in there saying whether you have me on site or not, if you go look at a place and you buy it during this period, you owe me a commission. Now, if they go to, let's say, a builder, and they just go on a Saturday and they register, that's gonna make things kind of interesting.
I think it's gonna be interesting to see if what the new builds are gonna do. Also, as far as offering,
Oh, new builds will say we aren't offering a commission anymore.
that's.
I fully
I
expect
think
that.
that depends on the market, because we saw.
Well,
We saw
agreed.
it go down to nothing, and they're giving us like 3 plus.
They want
Yeah,
us
they
to bring the
was-
buyers in.
Yeah. But I think a lot of them are gonna do the, I'm not paying you anything, get it from them. Now, that'll affect their pricing. But we'll see what happens. All right, mortgage rates. Mortgage rates haven't really changed the last month. They've gone up, they've gone down, but they've kind of hovered right in this area. And that just tells us that the market is stabilizing. So, by the way, this whole buyer's agency thing, I had a lot of people say, well, how's this gonna affect the economics? It really won't, not anytime soon. The lack of inventory and rates are really what are gonna determine it. This will work its way out. Will it eventually affect pricing? Yes. It will either diminish appreciation or lower pricing slightly. But this is not as big a deal as most people think, okay? But rates are, as you can see, they're pretty stable overall from what we've seen, and there's not a lot going on there. To give you context on this, from 1990 to 2023, the average rate was 5.98%. We all thought that was normal because, were you licensed before 90?
Me?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay,
When I started my first year, I think I paid 28%. 27%. Something
Okay.
really different than today.
but most of us weren't licensed before 90. So what we thought was normal was never normal. It was just the normal for that short period. And I hate to tell you, 33 years is a short period when you're looking at economics. From 72 to 23, 7.74. Well, we're at 7.505 right now. So we're actually below basically what's called the lifetime average. Okay. Again, I don't expect to see 16% anytime soon. I could be wrong. But I sure don't expect to see 5% anytime soon either. Joe, what's your thoughts on this since you're
I would agree with you on that. From everything that I've been reading and watching on the economists that I follow, maybe 2 rate reductions this year, maybe 3 next year. But nothing dramatic is gonna happen on the rate drop anytime soon.
Okay.
And it doesn't sound like it sounds like they're not gonna be going up anymore. There's a smaller percentage of it going up than just staying flat.
Don't you think politics will kind of fall into that play though?
politics wants to, can the Fed afford to? That's where I said we have that fight between the Fed right now and the incumbents. Because they want to say, hey, lower prices so we can get reelected. But if the Fed does that, they stimulate the economy, inflation spikes, everybody gets hurt. I'm telling you, like, the earliest they could do it and not spike inflation is June. And even in June, it's a risk. I think August will be the first, and I'm gonna. This is where you heard me a little earlier. I somewhat disagree with Joe. I think if we see CPI keep going up at the rate it's been going, they're going to have to do at least 25 basis increase. I've been saying that for months. We'll see if I'm right, guys. I'm not right 100% of the time, obviously, but there's nothing showing me that they have anything that's working that's slowing it down. That's where my logic comes. Now, everybody says, oh, the market's good, market's this, market's that. You got to look at what factors you're looking at. Are you just looking at the stock market? Are you just looking at the repos? What are you looking at? The reverse repo program being sunset is going to cause a lot of banks to falter. By the way, these are smaller banks that, for the most part, they can tell me if you know the number. The number of people that have more than 250,000 in a bank is like 7% of people or something like that. It's like 93% aren't affected by the FDIC. And the 7%, most of the time they have it diversified enough, but do you know what that number is? I read it like a year ago. I couldn't find it when I went to look for it again. Okay. My point being, some of these banks are going to fail. The failure is not the big deal because FDIC takes care of some of it, and Porticos, Porticos, look up that company. It's what's called a blank check company that the Fed put in place that they want to come in and buy all these failed banks. Now, this wasn't orchestrated. Nothing to see here. The building's on fire. We're buying it. Move along. It's very interesting when you start digging into this. Oh, and by the way, certain board chairs just happen to be major shareholders here. But nothing was orchestrated. Anywho, what's going to be the risk when the banks start failing, and we will have a lot of bank failures this year, is all the pundits on there screaming the sky is falling, and all the Americans going to their banks that are healthy and yanking their money out when we only have a 3.5% deposit rate. See, the banks cannot live very long without new deposits coming. If people are drawing a bunch of money out, it'll cause other banks to fail. And that could, I'm not saying will, could lead us to a meltdown like we had in 2008, where it was not these small little banks, it was the big ones where we're going, oh crap, our whole society will crumble. Okay, anybody see Man Max? I got dibs on the metal mask the guy wore. All right, treasury spread. Q4 of 2023, the spread was 2.85%. You see that's actually relatively high. This is because the banks are all going, we need to save some money and make sure that we're in a good spot and we're insuring against losses when unemployment starts. Because they know the foreclosures are coming. This is their way of safeguarding. Part reason why you see the rates at 7.5. They don't have to be at 7.5, but the bank is trying to make sure that they're safe. What do you want to say?
Nothing.
Oh, what do you think?
No, I'm just.
Well, you're the lender here, so I'm like, I'm trying to make sure I give
No,
you.
no, you're doing great.
Affordability. So this is these slides that you see there, this format came out of the family reunion. These are the ones we went through the last couple of weeks. But I want to go back through this one because it shows affordability at 32%. And I'll get into why I wanted to go back to this one in a sec. But 27% was the historical average from the lifetime, the 72 to 23. And right now we're paying 32%. So across the country, people are paying more for homes typically than they have. And part of that is because wage income growth has not kept up with appreciation. So that's a big part of it. But 32 isn't actually that bad. Okay, it's definitely a manageable number for most people. The problem is when we start to look at where we live. Because if you look at us, we're at 43.62%. So now you take high grocery prices, high insurance prices, high gas prices. Now we're spending 42% of our gross income on homes.
What does that orange mean? I'm sorry.
The orange.
Colorado.
But it's just, so this is a heat map. So like California 62.1, Oregon's 48.
Oh, okay.
Anything above 45 is this darker red.
Got it, thanks.
Okay, it's just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. So you're saying Oklahoma is 25.18%. So if you want to know where to get an affordable house, that's one of them. Let's see.
It's Montana, really? Oh,
Yeah, we're not.
yeah, Montana.
Wow.
Yeah.
By the way. And here's the thing, if we have the summer sales season and the year we're expecting, we will be in the darker red by the end of this year. Because we're gonna have enough going off the market at 3% and going on at 7%, that affordability rate will spike.
Being an average middle class person around here, I'm gonna think.
116 to afford the average home in Denver Metro.
7 years ago, if you lived in California, you made $100 grand, you're considered poor, poverty, and you could qualify for food stamps. That was a true story of ours, yeah.
Yeah, we're not too far off it here.
Yep. People need to.
By the way, anybody think your taxes are going up because of these issues? Because if you don't, I got a bridge to sell you, as my father used to say. Okay. Well, what I want you to get, folks, is this whole part of the country is becoming more and more expensive. And we're above that 32% because they're averaging all of this in. That's why Colorado feels the way it does. And that's part of the reason why I said it's a good thing that the CPI for Colorado is only 2.2. We need to slow down.
Yeah.
And by the way, we've had a really good run in Colorado since 2002. For those of you who weren't real estate then but were around, did you notice that we didn't have the massive crash in 2008 that most states did? That's because in the 2000 .com, when the bubble burst, we never came back as strong. We didn't have that huge spike from 2001 through 2007. We had a slow trajectory and we dropped a little bit, did a correction. We're gonna have something similar here. This is gonna be ugly. This I blame on the show Yellowstone, and I'm literally not kidding.
Yes.
Because people are up there going, I'm gonna buy a ranch up there, okay? You know, I think you're gonna start seeing a huge amount here too, that you're gonna start to see massive issues over the next couple of years.
You know, as realtors, like you might have talked about this before in the past, and where we thought rates were gonna go compared to what they're doing, are you cautious about really having your clients do these 2-1 buy downs? Since like, is there any kind of risk, not risk, but are we like talking complete? You know, as a realtor, I'm like, oh my God, just do this and you're gonna be fine, but I didn't say that, but are we going to, like, is there a?
Like a
I will
repercussion.
let Joe answer first, then I'm gonna give you a slightly different answer, I know based off of what he's gonna say, because I'm gonna give it from the realtor end, but I want him to give it from the financing.
And you're speaking to the 2-1 buy downs?
Well, yeah,
Yes.
because I mean, we've all,
Like a poor offset to it?
well, like I'm just,
If rates go up in the next couple of years, are you screwing your clients because they're not?
yeah, we're like, we're really
Right, so do like a
pushing.
permanent buy down?
Yeah.
And all these
2-1
first
buy
time
down?
home buyers going, you're gonna be fine, because we're gonna do this and this, you know, I mean, we've all heard people say that.
I've only done 1 2-1 buy down in the last 15 months out of all the loans I've
Oh my
closed.
God, I've done like 9,
Yeah,
7 or 9, I've
Yeah,
done a lot, and
I
I now
stick
I'm,
closer to the permanent rate buy down than I do the 2-1 buy down. Just to set them up so that they aren't going to have an adjustment payment as they move forward.
Mhm.
So I normally, like, I've been walking in and out because I just wrote a pre-approval letter. We're doing a permanent buy down, and they wanted a 2-1 buy down. They also wanted to do an assumable loan, but we never made it to that point.
What's it, you said a primitive one?
permanent.
Yeah.
Permanent?
It's permanent by now.
Yeah,
Oh, got it.
the life of the loan.
Yes.
So instead of buying down that 2%, we're buying their rate down to, with seller's credits, down to 5.75% for the life of the loan.
Okay.
It's gonna cost 18 grand. But it's a
You
life
got
of the
it,
loan.
yeah.
So it doesn't matter what rates do then, if they go up
Right.
or down in the future, we don't have to try to play a guessing game with our crystal ball. It's just set.
So
Yeah.
now I
I
want Joe,
wouldn't recommend it completely if it's coming out of the buyer's pocket.
Right, it would be like a case by case situation.
Yeah, totally case by case, and if it's coming out of the buyer's pocket, I would never tell them to
Right,
buy it down that hard. But if we can get $20,000 to sell the credits, let's use it.
so now let's take it from the realtor perspective, and I apologize, I'm gonna interrupt you.
No, do it.
If my buyer is 70 years old, I'm not gonna do that.
Exactly.
Okay, especially if the house has stairs or something like that. If they are a 30-year-old couple that has 1 or 2 kids and they have a third one on the way, like one we just sold, and the likelihood is they're gonna spend 10 years in this house, that probably makes a lot of sense. So you also need to look at how is this going to serve your buyers and get them with someone like Joe or Levi, where they're going to get an education about what this really looks like. Okay, the other piece is, and hold on, everybody put your pens down and look up here. I want to make sure the eyes are on. For Christ's sake, quit selling them stuff that is at the absolute top of what they can afford.
thank you.
Educate your buyers and say, you don't want to be house poor. So let's look in your comfort level, not what you can afford.
Exactly.
When Les and I bought our last house, we qualified for like 810 or something like that. We bought it 365, and we bought a place that was beaten up that needed work that we knew we were gonna put money into. So it wasn't really a 365. But I didn't want the payments at 810. I know what that looks like. Too many people go, well, we'll figure it out. No, they don't. They get foreclosed on. Guess who they sue? They sue each of you and they sue me.
Yeah, that's a big conversation.
One second, right? So please educate them on, let's get you into a house, let's get you creating some appreciation where it's comfortable for you. And then I tell you what, 2 to 3 years, we expect rates to be down and we'll revisit this and we'll get you into something nicer and better. And by the way, I know you're young. Mom and dad did not start in this house. Go talk to your parents. They started in a different house and they moved their way up too. This is part of the process. Okay,
Listen,
right.
it's not
I was
your
gonna
first
ask, what
home.
would you consider like a comfort zone, like, I guess percentage wise?
That's a conversation for them to have with Joe. And here's why. You don't want to get so involved in the finances where you know the inner details of their finances and create some weirdness. But it should be something that typically, if one of them became unemployed for 6 months, they could still afford the house.
Okay, and also.
And by the way, it'd be a stretch, it'd be hard, and it'd be painful, but they could still afford it, they wouldn't lose the house.
That's a long conversation I typically have with people. For example, the people that we just wrote the offer on today, they're approved way past the $850,000 mark. The offer that we're going in on right now is 470.
So about
Because
where
that's-
their comfort zone is
Yeah,
for their.
And that's for the purchase price, not the loan amount. We're going in at 470. Their loan amount could be 850, according to the approvals on the underwriting, right? We can do it. But does it make sense for them? Absolutely not. He's wanting to start a company soon. There's a bunch of money going out elsewhere. Why would we bury all our eggs into this house?
Right.
Right, so.
Exactly.
Ryan, you could also ask them like, what are they comfortable as far as a mortgage goes? And then start from that route, because not a lot of people really know that.
And ask them what they're paying for their rent right now or the mortgage
Correct.
they're paying right now. And try and get them closer to that. It won't be close, but closer.
Mhm.
There's a lot of folks right now that are renting and their rent's $2,200 a month. And I'll ask them, it's like, how much is your rent? How comfortable are you with it? Are you willing to go up? Where are you sitting?
What's your cap on
And
that?
then, and then you'll get a sticker shock too, because they want this $750,000 home. And they're paying $2,500 a month for rent. They're like, well, I'd like to stick around 2,500. And you're like, okay, well, do you have $500,000 to put down? And they're like, no, okay, well, then we're not buying a $750,000 house either. So it's having that conversation and figuring out what their limits are so that they can continue on with a lifestyle, not of their choice, but that they can do.
And this is why you have the buyer consult first. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is take them out to a $750,000 house, find out that they can afford a $650,000, because I'm gonna tell you right now, they aren't gonna like any of them that they see. They're gonna walk in and go, what a dump. Even though for $650,000, it's a nice place. Okay? So looking at the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, it bumped slightly more than we expected last month. It's good. It just shows that the seasonality wasn't as strong. But we're still sitting relatively low with it. The dot plot didn't change at all, not one iota. So the Fed is still predicting what they predicted last month on that. Home sales. This one's a slide I thought was the best slide when Gary Rubin and Jay were presenting at Family Reunion. And part of what they said is, listen, the 4.1 million mark is the gotta moves. Someone died. Someone went into an elder care. Someone got married. There was a baby born. We need to get them into a certain school district. Kids all left the house. If you notice, and we had a lot smaller population back then, we don't typically fall below that number. And we don't expect we will any time in the distant future, probably not for 40 years. So here's the thing to understand. Last year, people weren't moving because they wanted to, they were moving because they had to. Which is also why a lot of realtors went, this is a terrible year. It's because you don't actually talk to your people. You were just expecting people to walk in the door or call you and ring the bell. By the way, this year, Gary and Ruben are expecting to go from 4.1 million to 4.3 million. I'm more conservative. I think we'll be a lot closer to the 4.1 again. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I'd rather be more conservative on this and say run faster, and you guys have a great year. Now, couple this with what's going on with NAR. Couple this with the fact that most realtors have a 4-year cycle, meaning about 96% of realtors are only around for 4 years. And it's going down, right? We know the attrition for realtors will be higher this year. So there will be fewer realtors for that 4.1 million homes. We're seeing it in Denver already. It's not going as fast as I thought it would, but we're seeing it. Now, we still have a huge amount of people coming out of school going, I'm going to get into this, I'm going to do great. I will tell you right now, those will be better realtors than the ones that came in 3-4 years ago. 3-4 years ago, you sneezed and you sold a property. Now, the ones coming in are going, oh, it's actual work. Okay. I came in during the dot-com bubble when it was work. People came in 2008, 9, 10. They're still around, a lot of them. There's people who came in during the easy markets who did. All I'm saying is. There are 3 words in real estate when you buy, they tell you the most important words. You've all heard this: location, 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 right? 3 most important words when you're a realtor is sphere, sphere, and sphere. Because if you're not talking to your sphere constantly, you're missing the boat. Because that's where you're going to get this. All the social media in the world is not going to fill your pipeline. You'll get some. I'm not telling you don't do that. But let's back up. Why do you prospect? Why do you market? What is the one and only reason for it?
Business.
I'm gonna disagree with you slightly, Joe, and you'll understand why in a minute.
So why do we prospect?
Why would we prospect? Why do we market? What is the end game? How about this? What's the end game to prospecting and marketing? Or I should say, yeah, what's the end game?
Well, from all that, if you're gonna capture leads, I would say you wanna make relationships and build a connection. That way, when you get older, you don't have to keep chasing your business. You'll have a pipeline to back it up. Maybe I'm totally wrong.
So actually, I'm taking both of your answers and putting them together to get the answer. You're building your sphere. Here's the thing. If you go into an open house and they like that house and they want to write a contract right then, do you have to build some sort of relationship in that 5 minutes to be able to write that up for them? Because if they don't trust you, are they going to let you write it up?
No, you do have to build a relationship.
Okay. If that's not the right house for them and you go out shopping and a month later you find it, are you building it up and making it part of your sphere?
Oh, yeah.
If they're looky-loos and it's gonna take them 5 years to fix their credit and you keep in touch with them, or you keep them as part of your sphere?
I still do.
Everything is about sphere. Okay, it all just funnels in, and this is why we say your business is your database. You've got to learn how to use it properly. Like, okay, so these 2 gentlemen have been here last couple of weeks with Joe. What time does it start usually? Is 11? You're saying on Mondays?
Yeah.
9? No offense. You want to grow your business? Come in at 9 on Mondays and sit in this room with him. Because I've listened to him. He's brilliant when it comes to how to work your database. That's what everybody's got to get better at. I made the joke about realtors picking up the phone and calling other realtors. Do you know the number 1 reason to do that? Because 96% of them are gone after 4 years.
Give you
If
their
you're-
database.
Not only do they give you the database, do you know how many realtors I've sold properties to after they left the business? They're like, I really like you as a realtor, so I'll use you. Okay. It doesn't get much easier than that. All I'm saying is realize it's not the market it was 2-3 years ago. You're going to have to work a little harder. Now, with that being said, last month, we started seeing our seasonal increases, which is good. It makes all of us feel a little better. So median close price went up 2.5% to 576, 584. Closed homes went up 31.2% with volume going up 35.48. It was dropping at like 20% a month for the last few months. Okay. Days months inventory went down 18.9%. So we're finally below 2 months again. Again, strong sellers market. If we're below 3 months, and just a seller's market, we're between 3 and 6, balanced if we're at 6. Median days on the market is down 36% to 23 days. My prediction is next month you're going to see that right around 18 to 18 and a half days. Okay, we're seeing the market heat up that quickly on there. Active listings went up by 13.14%. New listings went up 29.12%. Now, realize that we're starting to see this builder inventory we've been talking about the last couple of months starting to hit. That's part of what's causing this, and that will create more competition for your sellers. Make sure you're listing at a correct price. Do not take an overpriced listing. Okay? Pending sales is up 12%. So here's what I can tell you based on this. realtors will make more money in the next 3 months based off of new listings and active listings that are going up. Okay? So I like seeing lots of green in the far right column. I like to see a little bit more in the second to right column. But when we look at active listings at month's end, down 2.1% month over month, meaning we sold a couple more in January than we did in December. And yes, these are a little bit behind because the new ones for February haven't come out yet. But we were still above for year over year. When we look at the closed, we were down 25.15% because we had a really good December. Okay, this number is going to turn nice and green next month. Sales volume, same type of thing. It runs concurrent with that. What I want you to see is look at the difference between attached and detached when you look at active listings. So the attached aren't selling as quickly as the detached are. Not any great surprise, but I want you just to start noticing that. So that if you're taking a condo listing, you can explain to them, hey, days on the market is probably gonna be a little longer for you than you were thinking. If you're priced right and you're detached, we'll get this thing off the market really quick. Does that make sense? Closed listings, this is for Colorado. I'm sorry, the Denver metro market. I think I had this on, I think I used this one last month with you guys too. You know, we had pretty much the 2012 numbers, just a little bit below that for 2023. With population that's gone up by almost 30%. That's why, as realtors, it fell hard. So we have more population and fewer sales. Okay. By the way, assume it's going to be similar this year. So dig in, talk to your sphere, go on 3 listing appointments every week, and you'll not only do well, you'll dominate. Because everybody else will be getting out of the business while you're taking all their business away. Starting in April, we will have a class, and I'm going to tell you right now, it will only be for agents who are committed to success, that it will be 3 days a week, be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And if you do everything we say and you don't cap out, I will cut your cap next year, or part of it, by half of it. Because we're going to do a class that there is no way you can fail. Because then on Tuesday, it'll be 2.5 hours of teaching and 2.5 hours of prospecting together. Wednesday, we'll be meeting in the internet cafe doing it. And on Thursday, we do what's called Bold 50, which means every single person there makes 50 calls to their sphere and or some other database. Here's the thing. Jeff, you've been through a couple downturns?
Yes, sir.
So have I. Kim, when did you get the business?
2015, 14.
14, okay. Well, Joe, when did you get it?
15 originally in the industry, but I went in production for 3.5.
I was looking for other ones that were in 08 for a period districts.
This year's my birthday. I will have 40 years in real estate.
There you go.
And yes, it goes up and down, up and down. Up.
But in this type of shift, you count it. And by the way, it takes very little past ordinary to become extraordinary. It's that extra 4 calls that you made that day that make all the difference in the world. And by the way, if you do the Bold 50 with us, you don't actually have to complete it. As long as you have an actual listing appointment that you're doing that day, go. If it's tomorrow, finish the 50. But if you get one where they say, hey, come list me, I want to talk to you in the next hour, you finish 50 calls, go. But what would change in your life? What would it look like if you got one deal every 2 weeks. That's 24 deals. Little over 10 grand, but let's make it 10 grand, that'd be 240 coming in. How many people are single agents not on the team? Okay, 60% of your income at least should be what your net is. Okay, so what is that? That's 180. No, that's not right. 146. 156, sorry. How many of you that would be an okay year when everybody else is dying? By the way, this program is designed to give you one closing a week, not 1 every 2 weeks. That's what I'm talking. But by the way, we will kick you out if you don't show up and you don't do the work. Because don't take the wrong way, I don't have time to waste on people who want to give me excuses. If you make excuses, the one thing I'll guarantee is you get to keep them. If you make new habits, you get a better life. Hey, how's that for a soapbox?
Great.
All right. So this is actually from my colleague this morning at the region, but same advice that I've had last couple of months, with the exception of I forgot to change, go to family reunion to go to mega camp. Talk to your sphere at least 3 times as much as you have been talking to them. And I don't care if you've even boosted lately, talk to them more. And by the way, and Joe, I'm gonna pick on you. Do I have to talk to my sphere about real estate every single time? Why?
Well, it's not necessary for one, and you don't wanna come up with looking like desperation. On the other side, it'd be amazing what the classic line is, ask someone how's work going.
Mm-hmm.
They're always gonna reciprocate immediately. I'll say, how's work going for you? And they just open the door for you to have that conversation.
By the way, do y'all know what the answer is every time? Unbelievable. You know why? If the market sucks and I say it's awesome, is it really? Or am I lying? If it sucks, go, it's unbelievable.
You're not lying.
I'm not lying. If it's going really well, it's unbelievable.
That's great.
Okay. But here's the thing. Okay, I don't mean to be rude. They don't actually care. How many of you know that person, and y'all know who I'm talking about? It's gonna be a different person for each of you. You don't ask them how they're doing because they're going to tell you. And you're gonna be stuck for 45 minutes hearing everything about their life that you didn't want to know. Your client's asking it back, and they're giving you an opening, but they don't honestly care how it's going with you. Maybe your mom, maybe your brother or sister. That's about it. Hopefully your spouse. Okay. But what they're doing is giving an opening to go, unbelievable. It's been amazing, you know, like with this whole lawsuit thing against all the realtors in the country. Oh, I haven't heard about that. What about it? Oh, well, it's just this. As long as you give a little information. By the way, for every statement you make, ask 2 questions. Go in your database and find out what you need to know about people. Hey, by the way, just looking through, I have no idea when your birthday is, and I like sending birthday cards out. What's your birthday? You don't have to tell me the year. Now I know it's March 14th. Awesome. So I just missed it. Well, belated happy birthday. And I'm gonna send them a belated happy birthday. I'm gonna put it in my database a week beforehand to remind me to send a card to them. The next time I might ask them their dog's name, what sports their kids play, stuff like that, okay? But if you only talk to them about real estate, they're gonna do what y'all do, and don't tell me you don't. Yeah, I didn't answer that. Don't be that person. Read and learn every single day. By the way, I'd start saying study the economy outside of this class. It's gonna start moving more fast and furious. And it's really good when you guys can start sourcing conversations with your clients and sending them little articles. And they're like, oh my gosh, that was great, thank you. Okay. Finally, we're working on this for you guys. This is what I put for the region, but prospect banks, prospect divorces, bankruptcies, all that, because They're coming. We're seeing them trickle in slower than we expected, but we're seeing the caseload build up. What questions you have? Sure.
What's your favorite sources for like the economy, learn about?
So Ryan, what I actually do is I have an RSS feed that sends me so much now. And I'll learn about something and I'll go in and I'll start Googling about it and grabbing anything I can.
I'm kind of lazy with it, but what I do is in the morning, I'll just get on YouTube and just kind of see what's going on. And then whatever they say, then I'll just start looking at
Yeah,
this, just dive in and just start doing research and you'll just open this.
And I do YouTube videos too. And by the way, be careful because everybody has their spin on it and no one's ever typically completely right. But like part of it too is start reading the Fed's reports. Start reading DEA's reports. I think trading economics is one I use a lot. Market Watch is one I use a lot. CBRE just put out a really good one on all the commercial real estate, so I can understand what the banks are looking at risk wise. You know, so I'll look at that and say, okay, I need to learn today about how this is really shaking out in the commercial real estate realm and what that's going to mean to banks. And that's what I'll read on for a week, or not typically a week, maybe 3 or 4 days. And then I'm bored with that subject and it leads me to something else and I read that and on and on. But every time there's a Fed meeting, I sit down and read the report. Yes, it's boring. By the way, when you start, you will not understand 80% of it. After about 6 months, you'll go, oh, I'm starting to see trends. After about a year and a half, you can read the report better than most economists. Because most economists only read the review of the report or they read the summary. When you read the whole thing, it's amazing what happens. It's no different than the agents who actually read the contracts quarterly like we tell them to. And suddenly go, okay, though, in 5.6.1, I had a question. It's like, okay, do you know what it is? Okay. Wow, the room just got funky. That's fun. Last questions, because I gotta jump on the phone with the client in a minute. Go get a listing, folks.
There you go.
Oh, no, we haven't come up with a name with it yet.
Fire guy.
Williams Kick-Ass University.
Yeah.